Just see what they say. Oh, shoot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Jenny from the Chopping Block, Recipes for Success. And I am so honored to have Stephen Hilgart here, who is Tony Robbins' top business strategist, an international speaker. He's also a coach, a marketer, and I just can't wait to introduce him to you guys all and get to know him better. So, Stephen, I just want to ask you, how did you become the top business strategist for Tony, and how has that been for you?
It's crazy. It's been a long journey. It's 15 years in the making.
Wow.
So yeah, kind of, you know a little bit about my story, but just briefly, I was homeless in Chicago, lived out of the back of my car for about 2 years, and I spent my last food money on a little book called Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins. And really turned my life around. And obviously it didn't happen overnight, but from there I kind of went on to build a few businesses and sell them. And from there I traveled in 65 countries, lived in 7, and about 5 years, a little over 5 years ago now, I came back to the States to work for Tony Robbins because I had this opportunity. And you know, I became the top trainer last year, which I believe is just fancy terms for more airplanes. So, you know, like I said, I've done about 2,500 workshops with the guy. I travel 365, live out of a hotel. I'm homeless. So that's just, I'm back homeless again, just usually like at the W, right? So,
Nice.
yeah, a little different.
Wow. So you mentioned that you were homeless in Chicago. And first of all, I just want to say, you know, I lived in Chicago. Those winters could be cold. And how did that happen? Like, how'd you break out of that?
You know, it's funny because I think so the background of the story is I've been in martial arts since I was a little kid. I had a cousin who was a world champion kickboxer. He did really well. I wanted to follow in his footsteps. And so I started training in the martial arts and I got pretty good. And by about 16, 17, I'm flying all over the world, flying all over the country. And I'm fighting the adults because I beat every teenager that they threw at me and I was still winning. So I was doing pretty well. But at this point, there was no UFC. There's like no NFL contract. There's no NBA contract. So there's only 2 options: open a karate school or become a movie star. And maybe you can take a wild guess. What do you think I wanted to do?
Movie star.
Yeah, there we go. So the rest of my team was training down in Chicago, and our instructor, our coach, my sensei, he said, "Hey, I just need you to move down here and just be around this." And so I moved down there with the thought of like, I'm going to get into the entertainment industry and fly out to these tournaments with these guys. And long story short, basically, you know, to say I got taken advantage of, that wasn't really the case. But I signed all these deals like, hey, record this video or do this. And, you know, here's your big shot. You're going to do it for free. But yet, you know, someday you'll be rich and famous. Just keep doing free stuff for us. And I did a bunch of that and found out I hated the entertainment industry. I wasn't a fan. And if I was being completely honest, I didn't want it. It was just what my friends were doing. So that's what I thought I had to do. So I end up in this weird situation where I'm down there and I had a couple of beliefs that Tony really helped me do, but I couldn't go back a failure back to Minnesota where I'm from. So
Minnesota,
one belief,
nice.
Minnesota, don't you know? Chicas Cali. You know, we'll talk about that later, get some lutefisk, yeah? But, you know, I had these beliefs inside of me that were like, hey, I can't go back a failure because I told everyone I was going to be this big success. And then number 2, like the big thing was growing up, you know, most men, I'm sure can all agree that most men's lives are spent trying to prove themselves to their father. So the other belief was I can't go face that man as a failure. I'm not going to go look in the eye and say I failed. Not after all this time. Like, I'm not going to do it. So I stayed there and I didn't pursue the entertainment after a while. I got really depressed and really frustrated and really sad, and it could have worked. I didn't. I could have done more. I didn't. And I just got really sad and frustrated with myself. Eventually, you know, the big story was I ended up doing some construction with a friend of mine and making a little bit of money, but and eventually getting an apartment with a few dudes with a bunk bed and all this craziness. But long story short, I was kind of desperate one day and just couldn't go home because I had nowhere to go and couldn't sleep at the karate school I was sleeping at because there were classes going on. So I was walking through that Barnes & Noble in Naperville, Illinois, if you're familiar with that area. So right across the street from the Fox Valley Mall, there was a Barnes & Noble. I think it's gone now. But yeah, I see that little book on the shelf, Awaken the Giant Within, Tony Robbins. And that's really what kind of shaped that whole thing. But the reason I put myself in that position was because I was pursuing a dream that I wasn't really pursuing.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's huge. Like when you're not aligned with what really feeds your soul and what you're happy doing. That's
100%.
Yeah, that could be a result of it.
Yeah.
Wow. So can we fast forward to now? So you read the book, you're changing your mindset, your belief system. Now, what happened after that? Did you go and how'd you link up with Tony? Did you go to like UPW or?
This is funny because I actually, when I bought the book, that was like all the money I had in the world. So then I moved back and I started to open the first business. I was like, the only other option was open a karate school. So I wanted to go open a karate school and ended up doing pretty well in that. Built one of the largest in the country, actually. We did pretty well. And during that time, I went to see Tony 4 times at his success resource events or whatever. They weren't called success resources at that point. I forget what they're called, like Success 2000 or whatever it was. But it was like the 3-hour talk that he does that now, funny, come full circle. This is what I do now for Tony.
Cool.
And so he would go on the stage and I would pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars to go see him because I thought UPW was too expensive. So funny enough, I'm paying more money than it costs to spend 50 hours to Tony Robbins at UPW at 2-hour talk of Tony Robbins. It's just silly. So I saw him
happening for you.
Yeah, no kidding, right? So I saw him 4 times. I built the school. I sold it. And then I kind of lost my mind. I lost my identity when I sold the karate school because I've always been in martial arts. I've always been a martial arts instructor. And then here I go and talk to a pretty girl. Hey, what do you do for a living? Well, not much. That's not exactly a great pickup line. So I kind of lost my mind, moved to China because I was like, screw it. I need to get the hell out of here. Let me go figure out my life. And then I moved to Latvia in Eastern Europe because I had a buddy of mine who was living there. And we went into business together. And this is how this story kind of combines, where we built a business that had some conferences. And Tony's doctor came to one of our conferences. And super nice guy, met the guy, hung out with him, and he was really happy with their conference. He was really happy with what he did. And he said, hey, Tony is looking for people. Why don't you go speak for Tony? Why don't you go? You love this stuff. You love Tony Robbins. Why don't you go? I'll introduce you. And at that point, I said, no, I just kind of retired. I'm sipping mojitos on the beach. I don't need to work right now. Like, I'm trying not to work. And he was kind of adamant. A couple months go by, a couple years, actually. I believe it was 2 years or so go by. And he comes to Latvia to visit me and my business partner at that point to finish some business with us. And him and his wife are teaming up on me at the coffee shop. Hey, go work for Tony. Go work for Tony. His son is retiring from that role. He's going to move on and do his own thing. They need help. They need help. Go, go, go. And long story short, I was in business number 3 and I was kind of burnt out. And I was like, I need to get out of here. I guess I got to go back to the US. My visa was up.
Can I ask you what the other 2 businesses were? Yeah.
So would you imagine what the next step would be from a karate school?
I have no idea. But it sounds like it's something way different.
The next logical decision is offshore asset protection and corporate services.
Oh, I don't know what that means, but it sounds provocative.
Here's what it is. It sounds like James Bond and Jason Bourne, like second passports and offshore banking and all this sort of stuff, like really scary stuff. Here's what it was in reality, like doctors from the U.S. who wanted to retire to Costa Rica.
Cool.
And, you can't just go there and live there. You have to do immigration. You need a banking account, to pay your bills locally. You need an offshore bank account, like all this sort of stuff. So we would help them set that stuff up. And that was really what it turned out to be. So we did pretty well in that business. But yeah, so this was a doctor who was like, hey, yeah, I'm looking for a retirement home overseas. And I need to know, like, what are my steps and what do I need to do? So we helped him with that. That's what he was really happy about. And then I went directly into marketing consulting, which is my main superpower is marketing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Beautiful. And how did you find your love for marketing? And how is that your superpower?
The superpower. Well, you mentioned what were the other coaches and other people who impacted my life. When I had the karate school, I was struggling. And I was reading a book called The Effective Executive, Peter Drucker. And he said that business is only 2 things, marketing and innovation. I feel like I don't have a creative bone in my body. Just like we were talking about, what's the background for this video? I don't know. Like, oh, sure, that looks good. So I said, I'm going to learn marketing. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And I got hooked up with a man named Jay Abraham.
Cool. And, he's amazing.
Yeah, he's amazing. And this is when I was pretty young. And I scraped together, talk about like that last $20 to buy that book. Like, Jay is not $20. Jay, just to get my first call with him was $5,000 just to have a 1-hour phone consultation with him. And then he would invite me into the coaching group, which was $10,000 for like 8 months. Mm-hmm. So like more money than I had ever seen in my life. And I'm like, oh my God. But he's like, I think we can triple your business. That's fine. Let's do it. And he just spoke with like so much confidence. And Jay is always like an interesting character. I haven't interacted with him in years. I would love to get back in touch with him. But what's so funny is just going through that. I was one of the karate schools. I think he references that we went to one of the largest in the country. We had a little over 1,000 active students. And if you're successful in that business, you got about 200. So Jay really helped me. There was another gentleman who I still get coached by today. His name is Frank Kern. Frank is an incredible guy and just brilliant in his own right and funny as hell. So we get along really well. And then there was lots of other coaches throughout that world. It'd be I'm gonna list them all, and then I'm gonna forget somebody and feel like such a jerk.
Can I ask you, what about Jay's teachings, like, do you think was like the biggest takeaway to make your business more successful? Like, what was the biggest thing, like the thing you learned most from him?
Really what it was understanding marketing, but understanding marketing from a strategic sense. Like today, the thing that I think most people are missing when it comes to, they're like, we do Facebook marketing, we do Instagram marketing. No, it's all marketing. It's just a different medium. And on that medium, yeah, you got to speak a little bit differently. You got to think a little bit differently. But the truth is, you need the right message in front of the right people at the right time. And how do you write copy and how do you create that? But more what Jay was talking about was really, how do you actually build business from upsells, downsells, add-on sells, cross sells? And I learned so much from him. And the thing that he really taught that made the most sense about anything is that there are businesses out there who have a strategy that if you took that strategy and you applied it to an industry that has no clue what that strategy is, all of a sudden they take off. One of the examples that's always used is like a carpet cleaning business. They never had like a monthly membership. But now all the carpet cleaning businesses have monthly membership because they show like, hey, you need your carpets cleaned every 6 months, and you need your vents done, and you need this and that. None of the carpet cleaners really thought to do like a monthly membership or quarterly membership. And now they all do it. So that was one of the things that Jay did. Wow. And he brought that in there. So, as silly as it sounds, there might be like the best, practices from like a strip club, and you bring it to an ice cream shop, whatever it is. I know it sounds so ridiculous, but it's funny what you start to notice when you look at a business. What made you successful? Wow, okay, that's an interesting strategy. So that's above and beyond anything. That's what Jay is so good at, like that strategic thought process.
Beautiful. And before we move on from the mentors, I just want to hear more about your sensei. Can you tell me how you met him and what he means to you? Oh God. And so there's a lot of those too. There's not just one that impacted me. My cousin was a big impact on me. He was a world champion kickboxer, did extremely well. And then the guy who actually owned that school, Mr. Miller, was a massive impact on me. Such a great guy. And, we had a little bit of falling out when I left that school to go off and do my own thing. But we've since rekindled and become, friends now. I don't see him very often. But here's what I'll say about Mr. Miller. Do you remember Napoleon Dynamite? Mm-hmm. Do you remember the karate instructor in Napoleon Dynamite with the American flag pants? Okay. Bow to your sensei. You remember that? Come on, you got to tell me you remember this. It's been so long. All I'm thinking about is tater tots.
Yeah. So if anybody gets a chance to go back and watch Napoleon Hill, Mr. Miller was that karate instructor. It was so freaking. I died. I started crying the whole time because he would even come to teach class in those American flag pants, those exact American flag. And I was. As a kid, it was like just normal. And then I look back, I'm like, oh my God. But he created so many champions and he impacted so many lives. And then when I kind of moved on, there's a gentleman named John Sharkey Jr., Sensei Sharkey. This man is out of Chicago, still based out of Naperville and Moments, back and forth. this man is probably the most impactful instructor, martial arts instructor that we've had. He's created something like 32 world champions out of just his school in Naperville. And kids, teens, adults. And he's the one that really got the kids involved in the movie industry. So all these kids who came out of that school, like Mike Chat was a gentleman who was a Power Ranger, Blue Power Ranger. Taylor Lautner was one of the kids that came out of that school. If you're familiar with the old Twilight series, Team Jacob? Yeah, the werewolf kid.
Okay.
Shark. I just remember him from the Shark Boy and Lava Girl days. So that was Taylor. He was a world champion that came out of there. And there were so many others. And Sensei Sharkey was just so adamant. He had such an impact on my life because he had such a high standard for life, for what you do, for everything. And because of those high standards, it really impacted a lot of lives. And I'm very grateful to him. But there's, like I said, dozens. It would be a shame to say all of them because I'm going to miss people. So I love all you guys.
No, yeah. I just think that's important, like to note that we don't do this thing life on our own. And, these people that come into our lives to bring us to higher places, they help us and then we in turn help others. And that's my next question is, so how do you implement that now that you're helping so many and you're traveling and connecting with and contributing to so many other people?
Yeah. I mean, obviously with Tony, Tony is a huge impact on my life, clearly, and still is to this day. And now I'm even closer to the inner circle and I get to hang out and listen to him and just, I'm in awe of his leadership and just everything that he does still. And one of the things that I feel like I do such a good job at is bridging that gap. Because if you look at Tony Robbins these days, I don't think this is a conversation people are having yet. But Tony is kind of transcended to this like Mother Teresa, Gandhi, Martin Luther King. Like really, the guy is like creating vaccines for coronavirus and he's like feeding 1 billion meals around the world. He's building forests for other countries so they can sustain it. He's like doing these things that are like so far transcended from like, hey, here's how to become successful. Mm-hmm. And so like I feel like I'm really that bridge from like where somebody is normally to like where Tony is now. So getting people in front of this man, I feel like I kind of bridge that gap. And I feel like that's one of the best ways that I actually help people these days.
That's beautiful.
So, yeah.
Oh my God. So you were telling me earlier how you go into companies and then you do like a mini UPW. Can you tell me like the training of that or how that feels? Are you like always in peak state and like, is it like UPW? Like, or do you just take like the business sides of it?
It's interesting. So if I use that metaphor again of being the bridge, like if I just walked in the door and had people jumping up and down, like they would like, what the hell is this? I'm here to work today. So it's just a little weird, in that sense. So I ease them into that process, right? And one of the things that we do, so there's 5 of us right now, national speakers that run around and speak for Tony. And we all have kind of our different personalities and we do things just a little bit differently. But what's interesting is I'll walk into, like I said, I've done 2,500 of these now. So you name the real estate company, mortgage company, title, insurance, car dealership. And what's so funny is that our role is to get people who are not Tony Robbins fans to step up and, think about changing their life and make things happen. And so I'll go into a car dealership, used car lot with a couple of guys who are, 8 in the morning, pissed off that they're there earlier than they have to be. They're drinking a Monster. They're smoking a cigarette. And I'm trying to go in and turn their life around. So, it's so funny in that sense. But starting out with some of the basics of like, where are you today? Are you happy with your goals? Are you happy with your income? Are you happy with this stuff? And, if you're not, why? And, the big conversation we always have in these workshops is the Tony questions. What's the difference that makes a difference? Why is it I can walk into this office and there's always 2 people? Same market, same office, same opportunity, same inventory, taxes, president, weather, everything is the same. But yet they produce 2 different outcomes, 2 different incomes. Why is it one person makes a lot of money, the other person struggles? And they've been in the business at the same time. And what we really start to uncover is like, what's that difference? And, Tony would always say it's decisions. So the main portion of all the workshops that I do, especially like a customized workshop for an actual team, is I kind of dig into like, what are the problems? But we really talk about, the difference between people is they're making different decisions in the same situation. And that really boils down to, as once again, as Tony would say, the decisions of what to focus on, what it means, and what am I going to do about it? Right now, more than ever, people are so focused on coronavirus. And for them, the meaning is it's the end of the world. I'm going to lose my business, lose my job. I'll never have an income again. I'm letting down my family. Things are never going to go back to the way they were. Like, they have this feeling of loss because of that meaning. And then what they do about it is watch too much Netflix and drink too much, So with that thought process, when I go in there and get people to really understand the real mechanics behind it, not some hairy-fairy motivational, inspirational thing, but like, hey, why didn't you make the phone calls yesterday? Mm-hmm. Well, you didn't understand. I didn't have the time. Well, that might be true, but that's a belief system. Mm-hmm. The belief of I don't have time for this. The belief of I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I fear rejection. I fear failure. So here I am just going into a whole workshop, but hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah. And I love that. So can you give me an example of like your favorite experience? You said you've done like 2,500 of these. Do you have like a favorite person you've encountered or somebody that you've seen like such an amazing drastic change in, or a company?
There's so many, and it's hard to pick out just one. And what I always get to see, what I love more than anything, is when I go into a workshop and somebody actually buys a ticket to UPW, to Unleash the Power Within, because then I get to see their journey. The people who don't do anything with us, like, more power to them, love them to death, whatever they decide. Tony Robbins not for me, great, cool. But that's it then. I see them for an hour, I see them for 90 minutes, and I never see them again. And I always wonder about those people, like, how did they end up? Like, what happened? Did they lose the weight they said they wanted to lose? Did they start the business? Did they go off on their own? What did they do? And I mean, you and I, if I'm being a little harsh, we probably know the answer is no. They didn't move on. They didn't go anywhere. Because I'll go back to a company after a couple of years, and I'll see the same person sitting in the same seat who didn't buy a ticket the last time. 10 pounds heavier, making the same money or less than they made before. Even more frustrated, even more upset, even more mad at their wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, even less connected with their kids. Like, I see it, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But the stories that I love to see is when people don't have any money, they use their rent money to go see Tony Robbins or something like that, and their life just freaking transforms. And one of the stories in the back of my head right away is a realtor, and I met this guy, and I walk into the office. And this dude, like, I walk into this office. It was an interesting office. It was kind of a rundown office. There's not much there. It's not like a professional training room with high technology and nice stand-up desks like this and good lighting. No, it was kind of dingy. It's like a bunch of fold-out chairs that are broken, and they're kind of sitting there. And this guy, face tattoos all over the place, neck tattoos, like real thugged out gangster. And I'm like, all right, here we go. Let's do this. And I get pretty direct inside the goals. I joke, I laugh, we have a really good time, but there's moments where I get really direct. What is your goal? How much money do you want to make?
Oh,
and I really hit them with that, I usually get an answer, and they'll say, well, I want to cross 6 figures. Great, awesome goal. What about you? What about you? What about you? So end of the workshop, this guy comes up to me. He's got his little enrollment form, and he's kind of shaking, and he's like, dude, I don't have the money for this, but I got to do something. I'm like, that's okay. Like, dude, I'm here with you. We're going to figure this out. We're going to make this happen. Just trust me, trust in the process. And I know it's a stretch right now, but let's just go for it. And actually his broker ended up paying for half for him. So we can actually make it happen, and like paid for like a hotel and stuff for him to go. A couple years later, I go back to the same office. Same guy is in there. And we do the same old workshop. Same exact workshop, pretty much, a little different because it's always a little bit different every time, but very similar workshop. At the end, he walks up to me with like this confidence and hands me another enrollment form. I'm like, dude, you're going again. And he's like got tears in his eyes, and he's kind of like sniffling. I'm like, dude, what are you crying? Like, what, are you all right? Is everything okay? He says, last time you were here, I wrote the goal of 6 figures. I wanted to cross $100,000. No one in my family ever did it. Most of my family's in prison. Most of my family is having a hard time. I've got 2 little daughters, and I got to do this. I just realized when you asked me what my goal was today, that this year I made $220,000. And for him, that was nobody in his family ever made 6 figures. Nobody, and he's like, I can afford to put my daughters in great schools. I can afford to take care of this. I'm one of the top realtors in the area. Like, I'm doing really freaking well. I've lost 40 pounds. Like, and this dude just like complete transformation. And both of us, like for me too, listen, when I see like depression and suicide and all this sort of stuff, nothing bothers me. I'm rock solid. When somebody succeeds at that level, like I get teary eyed. Like even right now, I'm getting a little wisty because I'm thinking about this guy. Just the look in his eyes, he's like,
I don't even know him, and I'm feeling my heart grow.
Yeah, I did it. And those are the stories that I live for. I mean, yeah, it's hard to be on the road for Tony 365, live out of a hotel every night, traveled on a different airplane every 3-4 days. It's tough, but those moments are worth every freaking second of it. And so, yeah, he's been to UPW now 3-4 times and shares his story with everybody. And he's just a freaking rock star. And
can you explain for the people who don't get it, like why we go to so many Tony events? Like, even though we've already been.
Yeah. So actually, did you do the virtual one this last one a couple weeks ago?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I did too.
Broke my board.
And you broke your board. Check it out. Look at this thing. Twice. Smashed it. That's amazing. So yeah. So that was my 23rd Unleash the Power Within.
Since when?
Good question.
Whoa.
I don't know. Whatever. But yeah, that was 23 for me. And so for me, I go back every time, and there's a couple things that really stuck with me when I first started learning from Tony. Was he talked about this idea of mastery, and there's like the dabblers that are out there who want to go learn something like business or making money or investing or whatever, and they hit that point to where it's hard, and then they quit. And he says, masters never quit. Masters are the one that practice the basics again and again and again and again, and they get so damn good. And the reason that resonated with me so well is that's exactly what I learned in karate. Wow. The reason I got to where I was as a champion for many different divisions and stuff like that was Sensei Sharkey taught me, like, he was so insanely obsessed with the details and the basics. And interesting language this guy would always use. It was always very colorful. Sensei Sharkey, and he was the guy that would have a beer in front of class, back in the day, like, you kids do it right, stupid. Yes, Sensei. You should have talked to the kids like that. Shut up. He was always joking, but it was just so funny. It's just whatever. Anyways, but he was so obsessed with the basics, and he said the difference between like good people and outstanding people is they have the basics down so damn well. And Tony would say that in the world of like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan still shoots free throws. You would think, okay, I mastered that technique now. I'm pretty good. Let me move on to like 3-pointers or whatever. No, he shot, what was it? I was watching The Last Dance again. If you haven't seen the Netflix documentary.
I started to watch it, but I just I never watched TV. So it's hard for me.
I get it. I totally get it. I fall asleep to it. So I wake up in like one episode and I'm like,
you're like the third person who said to watch it. So I'm going to try to get that done.
It's just interesting to see psychology, and that psychology is important for everybody. And maybe you're not playing basketball, but you're trying to sell real estate or a car, or you're trying to be a coach or a podcaster, like anything. That psychology of like, I'm going to be the best. And the way I'm going to be the best is I'm going to have the basics down so damn well that nobody can touch me. And it's just another level. So, that would be the reason I keep going back to UPW. I can almost do it word for word right now. Like the entire 50-hour presentation, I can tell you exactly where they are. I can tell you when Tony is off script. That's how well I know
hilarious.
it. I'm like, oh, all right, we're going to be 3 hours off because he's going into this path. I know what he's doing. So much for dinner tonight.
Wow.
So I know it so well, but I still go back and master it because, it's he said it, repetition is the mother of skill. And, so many people are dabblers. They say, I know that already. I've been there already. I've done that already. Well, are you doing it?
Yeah.
Because if you're not doing it, you don't actually know it.
And I'm sure you could reapply it to different stages of your life as well.
100%. Every time I've gone back, like it was a different level for me. And the first one I remember, like nobody could ever make $100,000 a year. And I broke through that. And then the next one was like, well, okay, 200,000, that's a stretch. Okay, I got it. Like I get the lesson and everybody can make 100 grand, but not everybody can do 200. And then hit that. And then it was like the next ratcheting up. And then body and health and fitness and relationships. And just every time, life continues. So the problem is you're going to pick up some more limiting beliefs, and you're going to pick up some challenges, and things like a global pandemic are going to happen. Like, how do you keep your psychology on point then?
I almost forgot about that. I was so excited about the UPW talk.
Yeah, no kidding, right? But yeah, I love it. And no matter how many times I go to it, it still impacts me. And there's a lot of sense of pride when I get there myself, because I had personally brought a couple hundred people to each event, you know, so there's like that pride of like, hey, I'm helping Tony change lives. And, you know, I'm the reason they're in this room. It's the mission. That's really what it is. And, you know, it's a powerful experience.
So what's your favorite takeaway from UPW? Your favorite, like your most life-changing, I don't know if you could even think of it right now, but like your favorite part of UPW. I love UPW. I actually like it more than Date with Destiny. I don't
really.
People say I'm crazy. Maybe I wasn't ready for Date with Destiny, but because I did it like back to back.
Yeah,
you know, like
it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, you know, the virtual Date with Destiny is coming up. I'm really excited for that because I wanted a little bit more like alone time to do the exercises.
Oh.
And Awaken the Giant Within, the book, is Date with Destiny. It's what it was 30 years ago, but it was Date with Destiny. And that's what changed my life so dramatically. I'm the only person that I know, maybe there's 2 other people that I know that actually read everything in Awaken the Giant Within, read it multiple times, and did every exercise.
Mm.
And the truth is, nobody's done that because there's an exercise like every 2 sentences. Like in passing, Tony will say something in the book that's like, oh yeah, and if you did this, you would get this thing. And we're like, wait a second, did that? What do you mean did this? And there's like, oh, if you did this and this as an exercise, you learn this about yourself. Like, all right, let me go do that. And sometimes that exercise would take like 2 weeks to figure out like, how do I actually feel about this? What do I actually think? Not from my conditioning, not from my previous life or whatever. So when I went to Date with Destiny the first time, I was like, I knew the material so well. And then when I did the exercise, I'm like, wait, it's changed now. Hang on, Tony, slow down, stop. You don't really tell Tony Robbins to slow down. But, you know, so UPW, let me answer the question. There's a couple of things about UPW that really strike me. It's number one, the emotional state and being around that energy. Because so often do we go back into the daily, you know, just slowness of daily life, and you don't have the music pumping all the time. You don't have all the craziness. And, you know, I used to love to go clubbing and dancing all the time. So I'd get my fix by going dancing. And that was it. That feeling of UPW was like, man, boom, 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 let's go, you know, just having a good time. And even in zones of my life where I felt like depressed or sad or frustrated or upset, you know, one of the things that I noticed is you can stop yourself from feeling positive emotions, but you can't stop yourself from feeling negative emotions. So part of going to UPW and bouncing around and dancing around and high-fiving strangers and hugging sweaty, crazy people and all this sort of stuff, like that emotion, like giving yourself that positive emotion, because it's so easy to just be in the negative side, you know?
Yeah. So. And I wrote down actually one of your quotes is like, pain in life is inevitable, but suffering is a choice.
Yeah.
And that's been a huge growth for me the last couple of years. Is it's always a choice on how you feel and how you react to the pain that you feel in your life.
Yeah.
So that definitely resonates with me as well.
That's the truth. And, you know, I knew that in some areas of my life and not in others. You know, when it came to health and fitness, like I love the pain of working out and exercising, and that suffering was like a joy for me. I love to be sore. I love to feel that pain. I love to feel that burn. And I love to complain about it too and all that stuff, right? But then when it came to like relationship, then I would just suffer, just to suffer. And, you know, that was a choice that I made in a lot of different senses of my life. So yeah, that's such a great quote. I'd love to take credit for it because I wish it was mine, but obviously that's Tony. So
So what about that pain do you think you were like addicted to feeling, like within that, like in relationships? Like why did you want to suffer?
You know, so that really boils down deep into the 6 human needs, and why Tony stuff works so well, which is the human needs psychology. And this is something I rarely get the chance to share with anybody, but like, and nobody talks about this either. The brilliance of this man is not because he's like 6'7" and he's 275. He's a big freaking giant. The brilliance of this man was he was the only person in history so far that I found who figured out why does therapy work when it works. Nobody else has figured that out. Not Richard Bandler, not John Grinder. Those guys are brilliant when those are the founders of neuro-linguistic programming. Brilliant, but that's just another school of therapy. Mm-hmm. NLP doesn't work all the time. Primal screen therapy doesn't work all the time. Cognitive behavioral therapy doesn't work all the time. Freudian therapy doesn't work all the time. But why does it work when it does? And Tony boiled all that down to this distilled system of like the 6 human needs. And for me, understanding this now, the reason why I would be in that suffering was to meet a lot of my needs. Because I had a big problem, I felt significant. And feeling depressed and sad was a way for me to connect with myself. Mm-hmm. And having that certainty of like, okay, this is painful, but I know what this pain feels like, so I'm going to stay here instead of going out and trying to experience another pain. Mm-hmm. Some people might experience that like, I dated this, I'll never date again. I'm going to be single forever, because they have that like certainty that I know what this feels like, so I'm going to stay here. And I'm scared of what that might feel like in the future. But then that's the variety too, right? So I know I'm kind of going all over the place here with this.
No, I love this. And actually one of the people watching, Leva, asked, what are the 6 human needs? So I feel like this is a good opportunity to share that with her.
Well. For sure. So here's number 1. It's certainty. The certainty is definable by, I know I'm going to avoid pain and gain pleasure. Like that's what certainty is. And you might use different language like security or safety or like comfort, whatever it is. Certainty is the word that we use. And that's always number 1 for the human needs, because if you're in an earthquake and the ground is shaking underneath you, you cannot think of anything else. Mm-hmm. And for some people, that earthquake might be their bank account. If there's not enough money in the bank account, they can't think of anything else. So that's where they get their certainty from. For some people, it's a relationship. If that relationship is rocky, that's where they get their certainty. They can't think of anything else because they need that certainty. They need the security. So that's number 1. But the second one, which is the exact opposite, is uncertainty.
The zest for life.
Yeah, variety, adventure, change, excitement. And Tony always uses an example. He's like, well, what if you knew every word to every song that's ever played and every movie and every show and everything? You get bored pretty easily. So you need both, right? Certainty and uncertainty. And actually, I did a coaching session just the other day on Monday. What day is it today? Wednesday? I did a coaching call on Monday where we went really deep into this. And people were asking, can you meet the need for certainty and uncertainty? Well, yeah, of course. For some people, one woman got on the call. She was like, hey, yeah, actually, I do that with running. I said, great. Well, what do you mean? She said, well, I go running every day, but almost every day I pick a different path. Mm-hmm. And she's like, so she knows she's going to be certain in that moment. She's good at running. She avoids pain, gains pleasure. But she has enough variety that she takes a different path, a different trail, a different thing. So both certainty and uncertainty. Tony uses the example of watching a movie that you've seen before. Like, okay, you're certain it's going to be good, but you hope that you forgot enough of it that there's going to be some variety. So that's number 1. Number 2. Number 3 is significance. The need to feel special, unique, different, whatever it is. And people do that a million different ways. Whether it's dressed a certain way or, clothing or hair or whatever, they have that significance. Some people drive fancy cars. Some people have a nice watch. Some people, whatever it is for them, have a nice bag, significance. But really, the need for significance most often is met right now by problems. Mm-hmm. And this is the challenge that we face right now more than ever, is because there are so many problems that people try to feel more significant, that they try to come up with a bigger problem that they have. And you see this whole silly, stupid argument about mask or no mask. I mean, who gives a fuck? Just, is that really what you're so worried about, as being uncomfortable? Like, who cares? I don't care. Nobody cares. But for them, it's a way to gain significance by having a bigger problem. Mm-hmm. You don't understand. I can't breathe. I have this problem. This is about me. This is about this thing. And listen, we all have the need for significance. It's just, how do you get it? Mm-hmm. Some people get significance by giving to other people. Because you could also get
positive. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or being the best. Hey, you're the best podcaster. Hey, freaking great work, Jenny. Like she's got this baddest thing.
I'm gonna clip that in there.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, there you go. Right there, right? So, you can gain significance by being good at what you do, or gaining significance by giving to people, or just, being really smart, or knowing an answer. Like, there's a lot of ways to gain significance that don't have to be so angry. But, at the beginning, it was like, when you sit down with your friends, notice this pattern. It happens all the damn time. I still do it too. So I'm not immune to this. You sit down at the restaurant, you're hanging out at the bar, and somebody sits down. Hey, how's it going? Oh, I got this problem at work. And, this person, wait, hang on. You think you got a problem at work? Let me tell you about my problem at work. And it's just like one level higher. And then someone comes like, no. Look, I've been dealing with this for 10 years. And they just, stack on that, like, my problem's bigger than your problem. But that's how you gain significance, most people. So it's all over the place, right?
And it's addicting, right?
It's extremely addicting. That's what the problem is because all of these behaviors show you why you do what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's significance. And then, of course, there's love and connection, which is the complete opposite, right? Significance, I got to be alone and special and unique, but I want everybody to love me and I want to be connected and that sort of stuff. So that's number 4. And then number 5 and 6 are growth and contribution. So those are the 6 needs. There's a great TED Talk, by the way, if you haven't seen the YouTube, Why People Do What They Do. It's Tony Robbins at the original TED, not the TEDx Talks.
He went over time.
Yeah, that he went over time. And he did it really sneakily, too. And he taught us that technique, too.
I took a TED Talk class with Richard Green, and he was talking about that, how Tony went. He was like, he just went over the time, but no one cared.
Nobody cares when Tony's going on in his stories. Yeah. So that was pretty good. So, yeah, hopefully that answers it. Levi, was it?
Levi Cohen. Thank you so much for sharing that, Stephen. And I just want to acknowledge everyone here while we're talking. Mikey Aldo, nice to see you here. Unlimited Power completely changed my life.
Yeah.
Love that.
That was the original book.
Joining us. What do you like better, Unlimited Power, Awaken, right?
They're very different. Unlimited Power is basically his, like, starting him creating his first school of therapy, which was neuro-associative conditioning. It was like explaining like the difference between NLP and AC. And then what the challenge, like he really taught, like, how do you actually change people in that?
Uh-oh, I think you're frozen. All right, so Steven's frozen right now, or I hope I'm not brilliant. Frozen.
If you
there you are. Okay. You're back, remember?
Oh, there we go. Yeah, robot dance until I come back. Okay, cool. Unlimited Power.
Hilarious.
Brilliant. Yeah, exactly. It's the best. It's the best. It's just awesome. The typical virtual world,
so
right?
Awesome.
Yeah. It's like, it's so funny. It's like when you're in a live workshop and a phone rings and everyone's like, oh, there it is. Now it's just like the thing is cutting out. So anyways, Unlimited Power, brilliant. It's pretty advanced. So it is really well written for the point where Tony like explains things really well, but there's some really advanced concepts in there, like meta programs and understanding some of the sensory overload and all that sort of stuff. But Awaken the Giant Within is a little bit more user friendly. It's just quite a bit bigger.
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Beth, hey girl.
Thumbs up.
Eva, Paz, I love your heart. Nice to see you here.
Paz, wait a second. I know Paz.
You know Paz?
Aaron.
I love Paz. The BB?
Yeah.
Aaron, I know that dude.
I know that dude.
You know these guys?
There's Mark.
You know Mark?
I'm supposed to be on Mark's podcast and whatever. I still got to connect. Yeah, well, don't tell him that this is the best podcast, right? So, but yeah.
Yeah, he's a very good friend of mine.
That's awesome.
We always support each
really
other.
Cool people. The challenge is I've been on the road for so long that it's hard to meet everybody. And I just see people like behind the scenes of like the Facebook groups or like at events, or I'll run into them and like we'll know who each other are, but kind of like in passing. So it's so cool to actually like connect with people and be like, hey,
it's such a beautiful family. Like, I know and love all of these people. Rex is a huge, oh my God, amazing. Lisa, beautiful. So thank you guys all for watching. And Stephen, talking about like our hunger and keeping our hunger alive, I'm really curious to know, what is your favorite food and or recipe?
Food and or recipe. Well, listen, the best thing I make is reservations. So it's a real challenge being in quarantine, But so my favorite probably, of course, is sushi. And I know this is a little basic, but pizza. Like I love sushi and pizza. Like, those are my two like go-tos.
We have to talk.
Yeah.
Chicago pizza over New York pizza?
Well, look, if there's New Yorkers watching, you're wrong. But
See, I grew up in Chicago. I'm from New York, and I live in New York now, but I grew up there. Dad had a pizzeria. Are you a Grimaldi's guy?
Yeah, sure, great, fantastic. Listen, I'm not gonna pick sides and that whole thing because they're all good, and I'm sure that was blasphemy alone. I'll tell you what pizza sucks. Connecticut, you guys suck. Not Connecticut itself, Florida. But your pizza, mashed potato and clams. Like, who the hell would ever do this? Why do you do that to people?
I hate clam pizza.
You know, it's the worst. So as we rotate. When I travel with Tony before like a UPW, I'll go to the East Coast, I'll go to the West Coast, I'll be all over the place. So the last time I was in New York, I still leave a wrong answer. You know, so the funny thing is I stayed in New Haven or West Haven or one of the many havens. And I stood there.
New Haven.
It's New Haven, right? So New Haven is famous for their pizzas. And there's like 2 pizza restaurant chains, not chains, but they're 2 like specific restaurants. And everyone's like from all over the world, this is the greatest pizza. Screw New York, screw Chicago. Nobody knows this. We do this. And I'm like, okay, give me this world famous pizza. It was mashed potato, clam, and bacon.
No,
and I'm like,
stop.
Really? Yeah.
No.
Mashed potatoes on pizza? Stop it. Just stop.
However, Connecticut, I'm going to show you some real love.
Connecticut is pretty beautiful, actually.
Their lobster rolls.
Oh,
stop.
I will tell you, I had lobster coming out of my ears. Like when I was there, I like 3-4 times a week, I was having a freaking lobster. It was that bad. Like I was so addicted. It was rough. It was rough. Yeah.
Hey, what's up? Oh my God, I have so many love bugs on here. Hey,
yeah, there's a lot of cool people. What's up, guys?
All right, and then we're going to go back to superpowers.
Let's do it.
So we heard a little bit about your superpower earlier, but if you could pick like a superpower, like a superhero superpower, what would that be?
That's a tough one. I actually have a superpower. So it's like I am a super. I know every word to every song that's ever played on the radio.
No, you don't.
I do. Yeah.
Not every song.
Every song. It really scares people. I grew up with my mom and my sister, and so my sister's 8 years older than me. So I would listen. My mom would listen to like freaking 50s, 60s, 70s. My sister would listen to 80s and 90s, and then I was listening to 90s, 2000s. It's like I just got the whole spectrum. And because we spent so much damn time in the car, every song that's ever played on the radio, I know it. That's my superpower.
Wow. So why'd you spend so much time in the car? Where were you driving to?
Well, my first real job at a karate school after I got my license, 16, it was an hour away. So an hour there, hour back without traffic. And for my entire life that I've driven, you know, we did a Dallas UPW event, and Tony was really happy with me, and his brother was really happy with it. They're like, "Guy, okay, we're going to give this guy, we want you to have the biggest territory. We want you to see the most people." So they gave me the territory of Oklahoma City down to Brownsville. 18 hours tip to tip. And so I was driving like 10 hours a day in addition to running 3-4 workshops a day. I was like, oh my God. So a lot of
Don't you wish we had flying cars?
Yeah, right?
So what's your favorite song?
Favorite song of all time? That's tough. That's a hard one. There's a lot of genres.
Favorite genre?
Oh, see, now that's not fair either. You're really not helping this whole situation. Favorite song? Listen, okay, so if I had to pick one that I was going to listen to, it's probably something by Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Cool.
However, my man Luda. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Luda is like the greatest of all time. I freaking love Luda.
I love that he acts like really. Yeah. Like you're not just good at music. You want to like do everything else good. He's really good. I loved what was it? Crash. Yeah. What else was he in? I think it's cool.
I'll go back one more. Willie, Big Willie style. I mean, come on. You can't not love Will Smith.
Oh, I'm like, I had a dream about him last night.
Oh, do you want to
say this? So weird.
Recording? Do you want?
Yeah, because I want to get it out. So I had a dream.
Do you want to tell the whole world what was
I'm telling the whole world. I have some dreams, but this one's not those dreams. Oh my God, you're a character. So I had a dream that I was hanging out with, I was at a pool party and I was hanging out with Damon John and a couple of the other sharks. And Day was like, I was like, Day, you know, I've been following you. Like, I really like you. Like, I love what you're doing. And I just look up to you. And I'd really love you to be on my podcast. And he's like, Jen, I'll come on your podcast. No big thing. Like, of course I'll come on your podcast. Like, I love your, you know, some of the things he says to me in real life. Like, I love the way you market yourself, blah, blah, blah. So then Will Smith and who was it? Who was the Kylie Jenner come up and they're like, Day, come pay the tab. Like, I guess they had like an open tab for food and drinks. And then he's like, do you see this? Like, they always make me pay. And Will's standing there like, seriously, this is my dream. And who knows why I thought this up. And Day's like, do you see this? I always got to pay the bill. They have all the money in the world, but I got to pay the bill.
Oh, yeah.
And then the last thing he said to me was, Jen, you know, I'm going to come on your podcast, but remember, he's like, you're going to, like, you have to think about how I get value from it. Isn't that weird? That was my dream this morning when I woke up.
Well done.
I'm like, damn, I'm like, what? How could I bring him the most value?
Listen, it could have been a lot worse.
It wasn't sexy.
Yeah, well.
I look at him as like a brother uncle.
Whatever you're into, listen, this is no judgment zone. I mean, I guess we're on your podcast. Maybe this is a judgment zone, but normally wherever I am, no judgment.
All right. Well, I have some other stuff you could not judge me for
there we go.
At a later date. So I love that you love sushi. What's your favorite kind of sushi?
I'll tell you the best sushi restaurant of all time.
Okay.
It is a place in Costa Mesa, Southern California. I'm forgetting the name of it off the top of my head. The owner's name is Glenn. Glenn is this guy who was trained in Japan. He's like a third-generation sushi chef. He was there for like 8 years just making rice. You ever watch that documentary, Jiro Dreams of Sushi?
No.
Oh, you got to watch that one too. It sounds so goofy, but it's fascinating to watch because it's just like the amount of care that they go into making sushi, like really well.
Amazing.
I just, you know, being with Tony Robbins, I love anybody who's amazing at what they do. Like anything, it could be underwater basket weaving. Like I'm really attracted to anybody who's like world class at underwater basket weaving. You know, so this guy Glenn, I went in there out of just like, it was just down the street from this Airbnb I was staying at. And I walked down the street and I go in this, and it's the traditional Japanese. There's 8 spots at the sushi bar. There's 2 tables. If you ask for a roll, he kicks you out. So he's like the soup Nazi. And like people, and I witnessed it. Like someone would walk in and be like, oh, he's like, yeah, how can I help you? And they're like, oh, I was just like hoping for some sushi and some rolls. Oh, rolls? Oh, there's a place down the street you can go to.
So it's just sashimi?
It's just nigiri and sashimi. He will make a roll only if he wants to. You sit down at this restaurant, he makes food, and you eat it. You don't ask for anything.
I love that.
It is so
Chef's
good.
choice, always.
It was
Chef's choice, have chef's choice.
Guys,
He'll put more love into it. You know that's a secret ingredient.
Yeah.
Chef's choice. Do it. Do it.
It's so funny because and he'll just write up the bill and he'd be like, I never, alone, by myself, I never got out of there for like under $120. I was going broke.
Whoa.
Eating at this place like 4 times a week because it was so good. It was just so phenomenal. I can't wait to go back.
Hungry.
The guy's name is Glenn, so if you go, don't
we don't know the
him.
name of it. What is it?
God, what is it called? It's in Costa Mesa. I'll look it up.
Okay, we'll post We'll post it in the caption here.
Yeah. Whatever it is. But yeah, by far the best sushi you'll ever have in your entire life. And this guy is so focused. It's so like such an artist.
I'm such a foodie that I'll like probably fly there just to go there.
It would be worth it.
Yeah.
I've actually thought about it. I'm here in Arizona right now. I think I'm going to go fly over there. I got to go see a doctor in LA and all that stuff. So while I'm there, I'm definitely going to go see him. So anyways.
Sweet. Well, Stephen, I just want to thank you for coming on. Everyone's starving now after listening to this.
Yeah, we're supposed to like motivate and inspire people, and now everybody's just hungry. Like,
well, let's pivot back to.
Great.
I'm really curious to know how you've been during this time. Like, obviously you've had to pivot. You're not doing live events. So how has that been for you? Were there any challenges? Is there any new tools that maybe you picked up that you could share with all of us that's helped you along?
Yeah. You know, what's interesting is we got on a conference call with Tony a few weeks back now. And that rarely happens. Like when things are going really well at Tony Robbins, which they have been for a long time, we broke a bunch of records the last couple of years, like year after year after year, we broke records and got more people, helped more lives, did more for Feeding America, like fed more families, like we just kept breaking records. And so when that happens, Tony just goes off and does his thing, like, you know, his Mother Teresa thing and change the world, right? So he just kind of leaves us to our own devices. And then this thing hit, and then we got a conference call. And the conference call is like, all right, everybody in the company get on the call. And here we are, like me, if I'm being honest, it was me and a couple of the other speakers and like a couple of other people on my team. We're like, oh my God, Tony's going to call us and pat us on the back and tell us we've been doing such a good job. And we're all excited. And he just basically started screaming at us. And basically what he said was like, guys, for the last 13 years, I've warned you that winter is coming.
Yeah.
99% of people did not prepare for winter.
Yeah. And
here we are. It's not coming. It's here. You have to think differently. You have to give more than you've ever given.
Yeah.
You can't bitch about money. You can't bitch about this. You got to get out there and give and give and give. You said you wanted to change lives. Join me on this mission to change freaking lives and do more than you've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all like, after the shock kind of wore off, we all kind of realized like, yeah, he's right. Like, and he said this, he said the apples are not going to fall off the apple cart anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, so if you're in business, you can't just like, you know, like I said, I've been talking to a lot of realtors. For the last 13 years, people have gotten real estate because it was easy money. Mm-hmm. Like they didn't even have to be good, and they would show a property and they'd make.
I missed the boat.
Yeah, but you know what's interesting? Same thing happened in 2008. In 2008, you know, the market fell off for realtors, and the people who stayed in it took all the market share because they had the guts to push themselves and really grow their business. So long story short, I kind of took this idea and ran with it of like, how do we give more than we've ever given and do more than we've ever done? And so we had to move the San Jose event. So San Jose, we had basically almost sold out of the San Jose event. SAP Center holds like 13,000 for UPW.
Really
so we were at like
to that.
Yeah, we're at like 10.5 or something like that. So they even sent us to Chicago early because they're like, all right, we're going to sell out. Let's get you guys to go move on and start preparing for Chicago.
Looking forward to that too.
yeah. Within a week, it's like governor says, shut down, nothing. Mm-hmm. So we're like, oh, shoot, do we move to Vegas? Do we move to here? Whatever. And Tony's like, I'm the master. Move. I'll handle it. So we moved San Jose to Dallas. And then Chicago was going to happen. Let's move our San Jose to
Chicago. No, Dallas.
I forget what it was. I think we were going to move San Jose to Vegas and Chicago to Dallas, which were going to be the two big cities that were going to stay open. And clearly they didn't. And then we'll move New York to Florida.
No.
Well,
I know.
New York didn't happen either, right? New York is supposed to be our
November
event. So it's going to be virtual again. But anyways, all this was happening. 90% of this business's revenue comes from live events. And now overnight, we can't do live events. So Tony, you know, we were all kind of going back and forth. And truth be told, you know, some of us had to manage our state better than others. Mm-hmm. We lost some people because they were like, I got to go make money. I got to go make an income. And some of us, you know, lucky I have another business, so I'm making money regardless of whether Tony makes money or not, you know. And so does Tony. You know, Tony's got 62 companies, $6 billion a year. Some of our business is the smallest one, you know. So it's like, here we are trying to make this thing work. And luckily, he came up with the virtual thing. And we've been talking about this for a long time, but there was never that like push to go over the edge. And so now he got really pushed to go over the edge, built this like $8 million studio. They're like 16-foot tall walls, thousands of screens. It is cool. I mean, you went through it, right? I mean, what'd you think?
I loved it. I crewed in the beginning and then I attended after I did the check-ins for people.
Yeah.
And it was just, I loved every minute of it.
Totally unique experience and totally different. And to be honest, a lot of us, like, we had our doubts. We're like, you know, Tony's going to deliver, you know, but man, oh man, what am I telling the customers? What am I telling the clients? Like, how do I just work with us, just go with us. And like, that's easy to have on a one-on-one conversation. Like, hey, just go with it. Okay. Let's just trust me. Let's go. That's easy to have on a one-on-one conversation. But imagine having that conversation with the 11,000 people that we had signed up for San Jose, the the 7,000 people we had for Chicago, and then the couple thousand that we had for New York, and like, hey guys, we're going to cancel all of this and do a virtual event. And, you know, needless to say, some people were upset, some people weren't. We ended up getting, I mean, it was like 95% of the people were like, yeah, okay, let's do it.
And so needed, you know.
Yeah. And what we had 22.5 who were actually like paid registered attendees, but it was closer to like 60,000 people who participated in that event. And people who would never get to attend.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I don't know. It was amazing. I was like close to tears just to see the reaction. Like,
yeah. I got it a couple of times when, you know, there was that story where that husband, you know, who was like laying on the couch the whole time, and like Tony saw him multiple times because he sees you. Like he webcam into your living room, and he knows if you're standing or not. He's like,
he knows when you are asleep.
Which is not the normal case for UPW, because if you're up in like the back, he can't see you.
Even though you feel like he can in the back, because he has that kind of reach.
Cameras on the stage or whatever that can see some parts, but he can't see every single person. But so here he's got this situation, and this guy's like screaming, yelling when everyone's supposed to be like writing it down an exercise. He's like, all right, bring this video up. And the guy was like, I've been a total asshole to my wife. I'm going to treat her like a princess. Like, I'm going to treat her like I used to. They're like, just complete transformation. He's like, I thought you were bullshit, Tony Robbins. And, you know, they're like, what's the Kool-Aid? And this guy just like completely transformed. That brought tears to my eyes a little bit, because I was like, oh my God. Like, imagine if that guy, you know, she was going to go to a UPW, fly to another city, get a hotel for 6 nights, rent a car, do all that extra stuff, come back insane. And now this is just going to reinforce his, like, oh my God, what kind of culture is going? And then put her down for going to the event. And not that he means to, you know, but everybody does it.
Yep.
Oh, what is this, Tony Robbins? No.
Oh, why don't you go listen to Tony?
And just like not knowing it, just to get people to like you, you'll drop back down to their level.
Yeah.
And then at that point, it was crazy. So the virtual is so freaking cool. But anyways, we're going on so many tangents. To answer the question. Yeah. You know, the funny thing about this whole thing is Tony finally came up with a solution. Now we have one. And here's the thing. I think it's almost a better solution. UPW is really cool to do in person, but we can't touch as many lives in person as we can virtually. And if that's really the mission, is to end human suffering, you know, here's a valid venue that we can do this with. And we can help people. There was 188 countries involved in that UPW. And now because of it, I'm speaking all of it. You know, some of the podcasts I'm doing now, tomorrow morning? Yeah, tomorrow morning I'm speaking at a Russian conference in Moscow.
Cool.
Virtually. You know, so it's like cool. And we're able to touch lives that we never would have touched before. So I spoke in Israel, you know, last week, and Russia this week, and Australia next week. And, you know, so it's just such a cool thing to be able to do virtually. But now I have my own challenges of connecting with people back on Instagram and Facebook, and actually being able to interact with people and do podcasts and get in front of people again.
Yeah,
no, thank you. I appreciate it for helping us actually get the message out, because that's a big deal. So, but yeah, the skills, I needed every damn one of them. Everything that Tony teaches to keep my state in check, to make sure I'm not going into a negative place, to make sure I'm not doing negative patterns and running into real challenges, and something pops up and I got to wake up at 3 a.m. to do a workshop, and you know, those people aren't even awake. I'm not even awake. And now I've cut out caffeine out of my diet again. So I'm like, really like, oh God, 3 o'clock. I need that rebound. I'm just going to jump on the rebound of the whole workshop. That's what I'm going to do.
Got mine over here.
Yeah. So.
All right, Stephen. Well, is there anything else that's on your heart that you want to share?
Guys, come to UPW.
Yeah.
I set up a little cool link. It's www.upwwithsteve.com. If you want to go to UPW, go to that website.
All right.
You get the massive discounted tickets. You get 8 weeks of coaching with me. You get personal power. You get all this cool stuff. So go to www.upwwithsteve.com and come join us for November.
Yay.
All
right, everybody. I see you guys contributing all this love. Thank you for joining us. And I have another guest on Friday, so I hope to see you guys all then. And Stephen, I'm rooting you on. I'm going to hopefully become better friends with you, and love your mission.
We're besties now. We're like this.
We just became best friends.
Did we just become? What's your favorite dinosaur? What's your favorite dinosaur?
T-Rex.
Oh, okay. All right.
Nope.
Pretty good. No, I was.
What's your favorite?
That was pretty good. That's now my new favorite. Yeah.
The robot arm.
You got it.
All right, guys. Ciao for now.